In this video, we're talking about teaching before the peak. And the concept of teach before the peak belongs to Dr. Christy Pretty-Franzak and Barb Avila. And don't worry, they gave us permission to talk about their concept in this video, and in fact, sent some great resources for you. So make sure to get out your worksheet, and you'll see in the resources section that you have an opportunity to learn more and also to get the infographic that you'll see in a little bit. All right. So specifically in this video, you'll learn what teach before the peak is, if you don't know already, and how most of us get it wrong or have it one time or another. You'll also learn what our job really is when children are dysregulated, whether they're tantruming, throwing toys, yelling, having big emotions, or amping up towards any of those things. We'll discuss what our job really is in the heat of the moment, and what co-regulation is, if you don't already know, and why it's essential to our conversation in these videos here in Module 2. Now, one thing I had to preview here is, oh no, it's an oh no. We have a big problem in early childhood. Most of us try to teach during the peak. Now, I know you don't necessarily completely know what the peak is yet, but the concept is in the name, right? Teach before the peak. Well, most of us try to teach during the peak. So we have our work cut out for us, but the good news is we can fix it. And I wanted to make sure to tell you as we go forward, there's no shame, there's no blame here, okay? You're going to get some information, many of you, that you didn't know before, and you may learn that you were making some mistakes. Let's just think of it as an oops, all right? No shame, no blame. Let's focus on moving forward. Now, I learned about Teach Before the Peak when I interviewed Dr. Christy Pretty-Franzak and Barb Avila at the first Transform Challenging Behavior online conference in 2018. All right. I see I missed a space there. It's the first Transform. And when I learned about Teach Before the Peak, it really helped me understand how come in the past, sometimes I was effective or wasn't effective with children who were upset. It really was enlightening. And I have shown actually a segment of that video to many, many teachers when I've been doing trainings, and it results in so many ahas. So I'm really excited to dive into this with you. The thing I want to do before we get into Teach Before the Peak is just a quick lesson in the brain, in case you're not familiar with the parts of the brain, because it really ties in to what we're going to talk about with Teach Before the Peak. All right. So here's a brain. I didn't create this image. I got it off the internet. And so you can see there's 3 parts. Of course, there's really more than just 3 parts of the brain, but there's the 3 main parts we talk about, especially with regard to looking at our states of arousal and whether we're over aroused in a dysregulated state or whether we're in their optimal space for learning. So to go through it, we have first the reptilian brain, and that's the instinctual part of the brain. It's the most primitive part of the brain. By the way, I'm not using all the technical brain science terms here, okay? I'm just talking about this in layperson's terms, just a quick crash course or refresher. So the reptilian brain is where we will have that fight or flight response, or fight, flight, freeze, or faint response. And for the sake of our conversation today, we can think of it as the blue zone and the red zone. And so the peak that we're referring to in Teach Before the Peak is the red zone, and that's the fight or flight. So the example that you hear most commonly is that, our primitive human cells, when we would see a tiger in the brush or the jungle, that we would go, and we would go into fight or fight or flight. So we would either fight the tiger if we were equipped to do so, or we might try to run off or escape the situation. I don't think it's actually recommended to try to run from the tiger because I'm pretty sure they're going to catch you. But the point is not the soundness of those approaches, but that it's instinctual. You're not using your reasoning part of the brain, okay? And then the other thing what we're going to get into is the blue zone. Well, we're just going to get into that one a little bit because the red zone is more common. But the blue zone is that freeze or faint. So when you see that tiger, you may, instead of trying to flee or fight, you may and stay in the and just kind of be frozen. Like you may have had this happen in your life sometime where something so shocking or surprising or upsetting happens that you just literally don't know what to do. Okay. And in an extreme situation, or just if your body's wired differently and you have a different response, you may also faint. Okay. So that is the reptilian brain. And actually, I'm going to show it on my hand as we go through this. See, I have some pen on my hand. I'm not going to take the time to fix that. So some of you may know about the hand model of the brain. So the wrist would be the brainstem, and then the reptilian brain here is right in the palm of the hand, okay? And then we can fold in our thumb for the mammalian brain. And that's where our emotion is, okay? And then there is also that's the part of the brain that helps us make meaning of our emotions and link it to things that have happened in the past or make meaning and evaluate it as good or bad. And then the third part that we're talking about is the neocortex. And if we fold down our fingers, that can represent that area of the brain where our cognition lies. So that's where we can actually cognitively think. We can reason and use rational thinking. So when someone gets really upset, we could call that flipping their lid, right? So the neocortex and the cognition goes offline, and then we would be in our emotional state. However, sometimes we can very quickly even regulate or unregulate down to that reptilian brain. So this reptilian brain is the no teaching zone. That's when children are at the peak in the teach before the peak. So you can understand teach before the peak just fine in terms of understanding what to do and not do and how it can inform your teaching. However, I just want to make sure for those that were interested, you could tie it to what's going on in the brain, because I know many of us are interested in the brain these days and brain science. All right, ready to get into teach before the peak? Meet me over in the next video.